That's the whole point. They want to be treated as royals. And that is the one thing they were told you can't do. You can't be inside or outside, just choose. So I think if Ravik decided to give them a royal protection, that would be a terrible, terrible mistake. And Harry's presence in Britain is always a problem. That's the issue. Harry and Meghan and Harry are dynamite together.
Nobody seems to ask Harry the one question that keeps hanging in the air. Not Oprah, not Netflix, not even the biggest interviewers. The question is simple. Do you regret it?
Harry is deeply unpopular, and he has been whining about security for 5 years in a manner that does not endear him to anyone.
If he really felt the way he says he felt about his family, that this is this older institution, he compares his father and brother's life to being in jail or trapped in a cage when he talked to Oprah Winfrey, then why would you set your child up for that by insisting they have a title?
Exactly, exactly.
Now, with only weeks left before his expected trip to Birmingham, the security battle is still unresolved, and even people close to the situation have quietly acknowledged that nothing has actually changed.
Everyone just looked at each other with utter disgust. The words expressed to my source were, "We can't say too much, but Meghan was incapable of fitting in with anyone because she couldn't cope with following simple rules as she felt her way was better."
The headlines tell one story, the reality tells another. First, let's clear up some confusion because the coverage has blurred the facts. Harry isn't traveling to Birmingham for the Invictus Games themselves. Those won't happen until 2027.
He didn't have the balls to say, no, I will not let you speak about my family that way, no matter how mad I am. And I think a lot of people see that and have that value of like, I don't really care what personal drama or fighting is going on. I still wouldn't want someone deliberately trying to ruin my brother or sister or parents' life or reputation or image in the public eye.
This July's event is simply a one-year countdown celebration, a preview of what's coming. Yet even that has become tangled in a dispute over one issue: security protection. You've probably seen the confident headlines already.
And the fact they don't give interviews to any other than people who they cultivate and control if they can, nobody ever asks them, do you regret having lied to Oprah Winfrey? Do you regret having lied on Netflix? And all the magazine interviews, don't you see what a terrible mistake you've made? And are you prepared to apologize? That, I think, is what we're waiting to hear.
Harry has won his security fight. It's just a formality now. Deal done. That's the message being pushed. But here's the part many reports barely mentioned. When representatives connected to the Sussexes were directly asked about the situation, the response was that, as far as they knew, nothing had changed regarding security arrangements.
So here's where the media headlines are getting really squirrely. This is not a win for Harry. This is not a reversal of his clear, decisive legal defeats. It is simply a reassessment for security that has been conducted for the first time in about 5 years.
Think about that for a moment. The same story claiming victory is being quietly questioned by people linked to Harry's own side. That raises a pretty obvious question about where the victory narrative is really coming from. The core issue hasn't shifted at all. Harry already receives police protection during many UK visits when advance notice is given, and security assessments support it.
So, to be a little bit more specific and clear here, Harry lost his legal challenges to the process used by Ravik. The press is framing the current situation as a win, which is problematic, only because he is ultimately achieving his goal of getting police protection, but he is going about it through administrative channels rather than the court.
What he reportedly wants is guaranteed protection without additional review, the level typically associated with working members of the royal family. And that's where the disagreement continues.
If he contacted the Ravik offices the way it is right now, 28 days notice, itinerary, we determine on a case-by-case basis exactly what you need. If the man says, my wife and children will be accompanying me, don't you believe that Ravik would be like, yes, you will have armed guards?
Critics argue that he stepped away from the role but still wants benefits connected to it. Reports have suggested that Meghan and the little ones will not travel to Britain unless those security arrangements are formally clarified and documented. Behind all the headlines, there's also ongoing speculation about something bigger. Whether King Charles might appear alongside Harry at next year's games.
Of course she uses the children to control Harry, like divorced parents often do. She has Harry terrified that if the kids met their relatives, they would like them or love them or want to go back.
For supporters of a family reconciliation, that remains the dream scenario. Strip away the spin, and what remains is a high-profile dispute, a family divide, and a situation that still appears far from settled.
This lone stalker, which is kind of funny that this is the reason why this has been reinstated. He must be very scared of this lady. It's very common for famous people and public figures to deal with a stalker occasionally. And this seems to be the only justification to really reconsider and approve automatic protection for Harry.
Another major talking point centers on an incident frequently referenced in discussions about Harry's security concerns. The claim involved a woman who allegedly approached very close to him during a UK charity event on more than one occasion. Supporters viewed it as evidence of genuine security risks.
And the only other time he's ever said he was in danger was, I think...
A fan.
A fan, yes.
A fan.
Exactly. So, you know...
It has pictures of him and Meghan on the internet, yeah.
There's only a motive if he promotes himself.
Skeptics weren't convinced and made that clear online. One theory that gained attention was the claim that the woman was actually a familiar face within the Sussex supporter crowd, rather than an unknown threat. One commenter summed up that skepticism by saying it was about as real as that New York car chase, and many others echoed the sentiment.
Do I personally think that he's blowing this a little bit out of proportion? Yes, I certainly do. Like I said, I get stalkers can be deeply unpleasant for famous people to deal with, but like, she didn't have any weapons, she didn't have any crazed ideations, it doesn't look like the threat is ongoing. However, Harry was sure to publicize these incidents. He leaked it to the press that this happened twice and the extent to which this woman got close to him, and lots of details were made public about it from Harry's team.
The New York incident itself became heavily debated after an investigative journalist publicly challenged parts of the narrative and examined the claims in detail. That leaves a question many observers continue to ask. If the woman truly represented a serious threat, why did the situation never result in criminal charges?
Because the way that is calculated is there a threat?
Right.
And there's no threat to Meghan or her children. They've never shown a threat. The only threat has been that they'll be photographed by paparazzi, which is, of course, what they want.
Well, which is what Meghan does 24 hours a day in the house.
Exactly. and then summons people to spot her at a restaurant or somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think, on the contrary, I think they won't allow them to abuse the system.
And where was the serious threat during the widely reported incident when Harry was said to have gone door to door in the UK looking for a friend's house, with hardly anyone recognizing him or paying attention? That's a question many critics still bring up. Some observers argue it's hard to reconcile claims of constant danger with moments where he appears to move around unnoticed. Fair or not, that debate hasn't gone away.
There'll be a motive if he promotes himself. And after all, he's the man who said he killed 25 Taliban, which he didn't have to do. He's the man who boasted he killed. He doesn't know if it was 25 or 30 and how many innocents died too. So what does he want? He brings it on himself and then says, now protect me.
Now here's where the story gets more complicated, because recent events have shifted the conversation. Reports emerged about a masked man carrying a crowbar who was allegedly found near Sandringham and linked to ongoing concerns surrounding Prince Andrew.
And he lost that case, he appealed it, and he lost the appeal in spring 2025, leaving him with no other further legal action possible to take. Like, that was the full end of the story. He cannot sue again, basically. And it's worth noting at this point that the threats that Harry and his family potentially or allegedly face are nowhere near as serious or constant as the working royals, King Charles, the monarch, Prince William, and his family, and all the direct heirs, for very obvious reasons.
That incident was treated much more seriously, and even some of Harry's critics acknowledged that proper security measures are important whenever high-profile figures visit the UK. So the discussion about safety isn't being dismissed as easily anymore. But this is where some commentators say things get blurred. A credible security concern gets discussed alongside older, more disputed claims, and suddenly everything is presented as part of the same argument. That's what some critics believe is happening. And that leads to the part many people find most frustrating.
His primary goal at that time was a judicial review because he wanted the public to see, or he wanted to be validated in his feelings that it was an unlawful and procedurally unfair decision. Requesting a fresh review while simultaneously suing to prove the first review was illegal would have been legally contradictory. His team focused on overturning the 2020 policy entirely rather than asking to be evaluated under that policy each year.
What supportive headlines often leave out is that this situation was never as simple as win or lose. To understand why, you have to go back to 2020. After stepping away from royal duties, Harry lost automatic security arrangements and moved into a system where protection requests would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Advance notice, assessment, and then a decision based on the circumstances.
Ultimately, from my perspective, this just proves that Ravik and the Home Office were never operating in a biased way. It only proves Harry wrong and shows that had he not invested all that time and expense in his petty, silly, ridiculous, entitled legal battles, he could have had this stuff reassessed every single year and may have had this very thing occur, this very same outcome, much, much earlier.
Harry challenged that process in court, arguing that it was unfair and flawed. The legal battle continued through multiple stages, but ultimately the courts ruled against him. Here's the point critics keep highlighting. Throughout those years, Harry could reportedly have requested fresh security reviews through the existing process available to public figures.
I think the real interest is how low can they go and when will it all explode or implode?
Yeah.
And that's really why I'm fascinated by it, because I think that, the manipulation of the media by them,
Yes.
by the constant drip of we've got to be recognized, we want people to write about us, but we don't want it to be our privacy to be invaded, is just priceless. And they are the victims of their own dishonesty. That is what is so fascinating.
Critics argue that doing so while simultaneously challenging the system in court would have complicated his legal position. Because of that, some believe he focused on contesting the policy itself rather than pursuing regular reassessments.
No one finds it funny, Meghan, for very obvious reasons. Because we do know the truth about your sordid life. Princess Carparkle writing, I promise you nobody thought that. She's the Kelly's Ashfen's baby and still had to make it about herself. Meghan Markle, you are so weird. Don't worry you all, Harry didn't get my friend pregnant. What is wrong with her?
That's why opponents of his case argue that if a future review grants additional protection, it wouldn't necessarily prove the system was unfair. In their view, it would suggest the process worked as intended once it was used. For those critics, that's the twist that changes the entire story. Now put the security debate aside for a moment, because another controversy sparked a completely different reaction online. Meghan shared a photo involving a close friend's newborn, with the baby's face visible in the image.
But here we have a woman who has ultimately been given scripts that have been written for her. She has gone to Geneva with the World Health Organization and absolutely talked about things she does not know about. And she's not really bothered about it, Dan, is she? Because if this was a woman that was worried about children's faces being in the public domain, she would not let her friend put that picture out there. Now, yes, it was on Meghan's Instagram, but even if Kelly had said, I want you to do it, you would say, no, this is really something that I'm passionate about.
The caption included the joke, "You all know I love a redhead, and before you start, no, it's not Harry's," laughing emoji. Supporters saw it as harmless humor between friends. Critics saw it very differently. Some argued that a special family moment was turned into a joke centered on Harry, and rumors that had nothing to do with the child.
I mean, it's a very big deal, Lauren, for someone married to a royal to acknowledge publicly rumors of affairs. I mean, that's something that Prince Charles and Princess Diana didn't acknowledge for a very long time. Yet here is Meghan acknowledging those rumors as if it's some type of throwaway joke. In an Instagram post, it's almost as if, Lauren, she is encouraging this speculation.
That disagreement quickly became another flashpoint in the never-ending debate surrounding the Sussexes. Many people reacted to that post immediately, and one comment stood out above the rest. The question was simple: who makes a paternity joke while sharing a photo of a friend's newborn? For critics, it felt like a joke that dragged several people into the spotlight at once: the friend, the friend's husband, Harry, and even the little person featured in the photo. But what really fueled the backlash was what some viewers saw as a contradiction.
It's thanks to Dad, says the woman who cut her own father out of her life, denied him the chance to meet his son-in-law, and never allowed him to know his grandchildren. Now she wants to lecture the rest of us about celebrating Father's Day. The hypocrisy is staggering.
Meghan has frequently spoken about online safety and protecting children's privacy. She has kept her own children's lives largely private, participated in discussions about online risks facing young people, and supported conversations around digital responsibility. That's why some critics were surprised to see a friend's baby featured in a public social media post tied to a joke. One viewer summed up that reaction by saying, "Protect the children, unless there's a photo op." That comment spread quickly because it reflected a concern many critics were already raising.
It's thanks to Dad, says the woman who cut her own father out of her life, denied him the chance to meet his son-in-law, and never allowed him to know his grandchildren. Now she wants to lecture the rest of us about celebrating Father's Day. The hypocrisy is staggering.
To those critics, the issue wasn't just the joke itself. It was the contrast between public messaging about privacy and a post that appeared to take a different approach. Supporters, of course, viewed the situation differently and argued that the post was harmless and shared with permission. Still, the debate didn't stop there. Some people were also surprised that the caption referenced paternity rumors at all.
Meghan's literally wearing like a $7,000 shirt in one of her latest AI posts about Shop My Closet. I couldn't believe that she would wear such expensive clothes.
And always in front of impoverished
Yeah.
victims of terrible violence, totally tone deaf.
Historically, members of the royal family have often avoided addressing speculation directly. That's why some observers felt it was unusual to see such rumors mentioned openly, even in a joking context. Critics argued that before the post, most people weren't discussing the subject. In their view, the caption drew attention to something that otherwise may have gone unnoticed. The conversation then shifted to another topic that followers have debated for years: privacy.
Colombia, the vice president who invited her, which is described in the book, was angry too because she expected the Sussexes to leave a large sum of money for charity, and they left, I think, something like $7,000 or $8,000. I mean, pathetic for a drum set.
I mean, Meghan's literally wearing like a $7,000 shirt in one of her latest AI posts about Shop My Closet.
Some viewers questioned why a friend's child appeared publicly online, while Meghan and Harry continue to keep their own little ones largely out of the public eye. Others argued that parents have every right to make different choices depending on the situation. Either way, the discussion kept growing. Then came another moment that sparked reactions online: a Father's Day themed post featuring an elaborate breakfast tray with items like croissants, fruit spread, tea, and decorative flowers. Many commenters joked that it looked more like a magazine photo shoot than something most dads would request for breakfast. But for critics, the bigger issue wasn't the food.
They did the same in their Nigerian tour. I think they gave $11,000 to some charity and, of course, promised that the Invictus Games would be in Nigeria, and they weren't, and that really annoyed the organizers. So they're not invited to any more royal tour.
It was what they viewed as a disconnect between public family-themed messaging and reports of strained family relationships. That's where much of the criticism focused, and according to those critics, the same pattern appears in other areas as well. They point to various public appearances, charitable events, and media projects where expectations and outcomes didn't always seem to match.
In the wheelchair competition, which I watched, between America and Nigeria, the American team were professional coach team. And they all wheeled themselves onto the court, as did the Nigerians. None of the Americans had a physical disability. They all had all their limbs. They beat the Nigerians 24-0 because they were a professionally coached team. And then they wheeled themselves off into an adjoining area. Now, the 100 spectators in the 2,000 spectator auditorium didn't see what happened next, which I did. I looked over, and they all got up and walk away.
In some cases, organizers and participants later shared frustrations publicly, adding even more fuel to an already heated debate. The criticism follows a familiar pattern, at least according to detractors. They argue that organizations invite Meghan to bring attention to an important cause, but the spotlight eventually shifts back onto her. Fair or not, that's a complaint that keeps resurfacing. Critics often point to international visits as examples.
Harry gets up and Meghan immediately gets up and gives him a kiss in front of the cameras because it's Meghan's show. What is Meghan going to do? Well, on that occasion, they went up then to Whistler, and she then disappeared because she had a crisis over her copyright of her products.
American Riviera Orchard.
Exactly. And nobody covered the games anymore.
In Colombia, reports circulated that officials hoped the Sussexes' involvement would generate significant charitable support, while some commentators later claimed the results fell short of expectations. Similar claims surfaced after their Nigeria visit, where discussions about future opportunities and charitable impact reportedly didn't unfold the way some supporters had anticipated. Whether those criticisms are fully justified or not, one thing is hard to ignore. The invitations for high-profile overseas tours seem far less frequent than they once were.
Just the specialness of the royal family, the castles, the beautiful grounds, the beautiful homes, the beautiful jewels, the rich history, all of it is only going to become more and more appealing with time. And if I put myself in like a child's shoes who grows up and then learns many, many years later just how special their childhood could have been, and the fact that Harry and Meghan try to manipulate this as...
Then there's Invictus, a cause that many people genuinely admire. But some first-hand accounts from recent games have sparked uncomfortable conversations. One attendee described seeing thousands of volunteers, family members, and support staff, while spectator turnout appeared lower than expected in certain venues. According to those accounts, the scale of the operation surprised many observers.
He compares his father and brother's life to being in jail or trapped in a cage when he talked to Oprah Winfrey. Then why would you set your child up for that by insisting they have a title?
Exactly.
There were competitors, relatives, organizers, sponsors, and extensive logistical support. For some critics, it raised questions about how the event is presented compared to how it operates behind the scenes. And that's where the debate gets even more intense. Some attendees claimed media attention often centered less on the athletes and more on Meghan's appearances.
Well, we wouldn't have had any privacy if we had stayed with the royal family. Nonsense, okay? Absolute nonsense. There are members of the royal family whose children are not public figures, who aren't titled. There are members of the royal family who are not working royals and therefore are not followed around by paparazzi, and their children are not getting photographed all the time.
They described moments during major ceremonies where cameras seemed focused on the Sussexes rather than the competitors themselves. Critics argue that coverage frequently followed Meghan's movements, fashion choices, and public appearances. In their view, when attention shifted away from her, broader public interest in the event seemed to fade as well. That's a harsh assessment, but it's one that continues to circulate online. At the same time, some critics have raised questions about financial transparency surrounding various projects connected to the Sussexes and Invictus. While many of those claims remain debated and disputed, they continue to fuel discussion among skeptics. Add complaints about expensive clothing choices during appearances connected to serious causes, and it's easier to understand why emotions run so high. But beneath all the arguments about money, publicity, and public image lies a much bigger conversation.
Once the king departs, I think the new king, I mean Prince William, he wants to slim down and clean up the monarchy. He's talking about a modern monarchy. Well, a modern monarchy can't include Prince Archie, Princess Lilibet. They've got to remove the titles.
Many commentators believe the real long-term question isn't about headlines, court cases, or royal disputes. It's about family. Some wonder how Archie and Lilibet may eventually view the decisions made during these years. Critics often frame it as a trade-off between royal traditions and a completely different life in California. Whether people see that choice as freedom or sacrifice depends entirely on who's telling the story. But it's a question that keeps coming back, and it doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon.
What you're really seeing at the moment, and that's so fascinating, is a couple in California who are floundering all over the place. They need money. Publicity, they think, will get them money. They're given publicity because we want to see how it all ends. What more will she do?
Well, I mean, there was this one. So
Yeah.
we already got the Canadian tuxedo shot.
What more will she do to get? And what more can Harry do? Because he's down now to one charity. That's it now, once every 2 years.
One theory that keeps coming up among critics centers on Harry and Meghan's offspring. Some commentators argue that keeping the family largely separate from royal relatives has created even more speculation about what future relationships might look like. Whether that's fair or not, it's a discussion that refuses to disappear. Then there's a contradiction critics point to again and again. Harry has publicly described royal life as restrictive and deeply difficult.
And even Meghan, I don't think, deserves to be compared to Anne Boleyn, because, I mean, at least she was trying to be something more than just a third-rate actress.
Right.
Whereas Anne Boleyn, was in the end a political force. She was someone rivaling the king. She wouldn't do what the king wanted, and the king was struggling. He needed to secure the Protestant succession. So the comparison is so foolish.
In interviews, he spoke about feeling trapped by the system. That's why some observers ask a simple question. If the institution was so damaging, why was preserving royal titles for the children considered important? For critics, those two positions seem hard to reconcile. The debate becomes even bigger when people start talking about the future of the monarchy. Reports and commentators have frequently suggested that Prince William favors a smaller, more streamlined royal structure. If that vision eventually becomes reality, some royal watchers believe certain titles and roles could be reconsidered over time.
Meghan doesn't fit in. Meghan never wants to assimilate. Meghan wants to be doing what she wants, and that is not compatible when you are in a royal family. This is, well, why Catherine, Princess of Wales, is such an asset to this family. Many people feel that she's the favourite royal and everyone loves her, but there's never airs and graces about her at all. She is quite happy to slot into that hierarchy underneath King Charles, and she is very, very dutiful. And that's something that Meghan Markle could never get her head around. And Meghan had the world at her feet, and she was the one that ruined it.
That's where the speculation really heats up. Some observers argue that major changes could arrive after the current reign ends, while others believe the discussion is largely overblown. Right now, nobody outside the royal family truly knows what future decisions may be made. Then there's another comparison that sparked strong reactions online. A book suggested that Meghan's treatment could be compared to Anne Boleyn's. Critics pushed back immediately. Their argument was that Anne Boleyn occupied a completely different place in history, facing political battles, accusations, and consequences on a scale far beyond modern celebrity or royal controversies. To those critics, the comparison simply didn't fit. And that's where the story stands today. The Birmingham trip is drawing closer. Questions about security remain unresolved. Different accounts continue to emerge from different sides, and public debate shows no sign of slowing down. As the next chapter approaches, the biggest question isn't whether people are still talking about it. It's what happens when the next major development finally arrives.